In this video, I'm going to explain how to complete your persuasive speech outline. It's a little bit different than it was for your other outlines, for your other presentations, and that's because for persuasion, there's a specific way I want you to organize your presentation using Monroe's motivated sequence. And there are videos on Monroe's motivated sequence in the module. So if you're not sure about that, make sure you go back and check those out. And I like using Monroe's motivated sequence because it's a very clear problem solution organization for a persuasive presentation. It's proven to work, and it gives you a much stronger persuasive presentation. There's 5 steps in it, and it's not too difficult to do at all as long as you go into this persuasive speech outline and follow along. As I'm going through this video, I would recommend that you either open up or print the file, which is right in this assignment, the persuasive speech outline assignment. It's almost like a worksheet that you would use, and I'm going to go through each step of that worksheet right now. At the top, you can see it says Monroe's motivated sequence and the persuasive speech. Yours, what you printed off or have opened, should look like this. And this is what you're going to turn in. You complete this whole worksheet and you turn in this entire worksheet as your persuasive outline. Basically, at the top here, it just explains that you should have your survey results. If you have not done a survey, that is required. You have to know your audience for the persuasive presentation. So go back to, it's a discussion on persuasive survey. Get that done. Email me to let me know that you are late on getting into it, if you are late. And I will send out a message to the class to answer the survey because you have to have the responses of the class in order to be able to determine how to organize your persuasive presentation. So if you haven't already done the survey, you need to do it now. And if you already have it done, then you just need to look at your answers and determine approximately where your audience falls. And we'll talk about that in just a second. Specific purpose here, for the general purpose, you don't need to do anything. It's to persuade. Specific purpose is you choose, are you trying to change your attitudes, beliefs, or values? Which, remember, this goes back to where you're talking about ghosts. Are you trying to change your thoughts on your particular topic? Or are you trying to change actions? So you're trying to change behavior. Now, you're always going to ask for a behavior in Monroe's motivated sequence or asking for an action. However, realistically, you may not always be getting that action. You have to ask for it, but you may be working more on behavior, on thoughts, beliefs, and values if your audience was opposed or against you. If your audience was favorable toward you, then you're definitely working on action. Next is the thesis. This is just 1 or 2 sentences that talks about what you're going to cover. You do not have to use the thesis itself in your presentation. It's just so I can see you have a clear idea of what it is you're trying to do. Next, you're doing an audience analysis. All you have to do here is write your audience demographics, and I realize if this is an online class, you don't know a whole lot. You can just put the number of people in the class, which you should be able to see that in the online, or you can just put approximately, there's probably around 20 people in the class, or you could go on how many people answered your survey. Approximate college age is this. We don't need to know exact ages at all. You may, from introduction discussions or other discussions, have learned a little bit about some of the audience, and so you can just put some basic things there. It doesn't have to be real detailed. And then the results for the survey, I also would like you to list those here in your audience analysis. And then you're going to determine where your audience falls. You're going to look at this graph and look at your responses to the surveys. Your audience was either more for you or they were more against you. And if they are for you, is it a very strong? Clearly this audience agrees with me. Then you have a favorable audience, which is quadrant 1 down here. If your audience was for you, but kind like they didn't really understand, they're not against you, but they're just like, okay, that is more of a weak for you, and that's probably uninformed audience. And it could be clear from the answers that you have that the audience didn't really understand what you're talking about. Then you know right away, I have an uninformed audience. If this audience was against you and this was strong, like they are on the opposite side of you, you have the opposed audience. If the audience was kind of like, whatever, or I never really even thought about this, you may put them in the apathetic audience or the indifferent audience, which is quadrant 3. Now, the quadrant is important to know because you are going to use this same quadrant and tips for the same quadrant throughout this entire outline. So circle which one of these quadrants your audience falls under on your paper. And again, if you're writing it out, that's fine. You just have to scan it to put it back in. Or if you're just doing it online, you could just put a circle on there or highlight, whatever. So you're going to determine which of those that it belongs to your audience is in based on the results and circle it here. So if your audience, we're going to say maybe your audience for this one fell in uninformed, because that's the one I'm going to use to demonstrate this. But again, whichever one of these quadrants your audience falls into, that's the one you're going to continue to follow throughout this outline. So for my example, the audience is uninformed audience. And now we're going to go through each of the steps of Monroe's motivated sequence, and each of those steps will be, I'll talk about a little bit, I'll talk about the first couple, and then you'll understand how it goes for the next few. But attention, your attention step is step 1 in Monroe's motivated sequence. You want to grab the audience's attention. I'm following quadrant 2 because that's where my audience fell, and so I'm going to focus on the basic elements of the problem. I'm going to, because remember, this is the uninformed audience if you're in quadrant 2. So they're kind of like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So we're gonna define it. We're gonna give them a definition using some information that's been researched. You want to make sure it's very clear, but not so dull. You want to make sure that you're keeping the audience interested, because this is attention-getting step. So here you may, and again, you still have to start your presentation with startling fact or quote, a startling fact or statistic, a compelling question, or a really good story. And one of those can be used to help define what you're talking about. So that's the tips. These boxes show you the tips of what you would include for that particular audience. Just to give you a quick example, you can see that if your audience was against you, you're not doing the definition. You're emphasizing the points of agreement that the audience has with you. So what are you on the same side as it pertains to this topic? So each of these quadrants is going to let you know for your audience what you should focus on for this particular step. And then I have underneath that an example for each of the steps, just what you might say on this particular topic in the example. And then I want you to write down what your plans are for this particular step. And then you move on to step 2, the need step, which is what is the problem. Again, for my example, I'm following quadrant 2. I'm just going to demonstrate the basic problem, because the audience still, again, they're uninformed about this. So making the audience aware that this is a problem and this is why it exists. And whatever quadrant your audience falls in, you're going to follow those tips for there. Then I have an example, and then just as we did before, you're going to explain the problem it is and how it relates to your audience. And I want you to write that information down here. For this one, using Maslow's hierarchy of need that was talked about previously in a video, you can look into that. Or you can go into, that can help you to determine the connection between the audience. And then we move on to step 3, and you do the same thing. Step 3 is your solution. Look to the box that's for your audience, and it gives you tips on what you should include in this solution, and then you are going to look at the example, and you're going to write down your own solution. Now that your solutions or your written down information does not have to be the exact same format here. I'd like it to be a few sentences though, so that you're making it clear that you have thought this through. And then step 4, same thing. Find your quadrant. This is your tip. You're going to read the example. You're going to write down what you would do for this particular step. Then we move into step 5, which is action. Find your quadrant. Read the example. Write down your action that you would do for this step. Now, you're going to take all your ideas from above. You had 5 steps, and you wrote down your ideas for each of the steps. You're going to now take that information, and you're going to put it into the outline itself. This is the beginning of the outline. You can still turn in the entire thing. Everything that you have listed above, you can turn in all of that as well into the assignment. But the outline itself, this is where it begins. And I already have everything set up here for you in alphanumeric order. All you need to do is copy and paste, and you can cut out what I have here and then paste your information in. So what's your attention getter? This is what you're going to put right here at number 1. And don't forget, you're getting attention. You still have to start with one of those 3. You have the motivation, the credibility, main points. As we mentioned before, all of these can be combined in one thing or into a few separate things. Go back to introductions if you're unsure about what to do for the introduction in general. This is still the same introduction we've had before. I just have it all written out here for you. And attention is a part of, or the first step of, Monroe's motivated sequence. So you include your information for the introduction here. Then you move on to the first main point, or the body of the speech, and your first step that you're going to cover here is the need step. Now, there is another sheet that tells you how to apply your survey results to Monroe's motivated sequence, and it gives you some information on which areas of Monroe's specifically you should really emphasize because of your audience. If yours said you had to focus on attention a bit more, then you're going to go a little bit more into attention, either in the introduction or in the beginning of the presentation itself, in the body. Just to make sure you understand, sometimes you have to have a little more attention step than others. But we're moving on for this one to the need step. And so this is your problem. What is your problem? And it tells you exactly what you should do, how you should present it to the audience. Remember, go to the tip above. Under step 1, that quadrant, it had the tips. You had what you want to do. Bring that information down here. So you already have that information from up above. You're going to bring that information down here and just put it into outline form. Letter B, your satisfaction step. This is your plan. What did you have written above in step 2, the satisfaction step? You're going to bring that down here and you're going to add it into this outline. Same thing with step 3, with visualization, with step 4, and with step 5, action. And then you are going to write your conclusion. Don't forget, in your conclusion, you restate your main points. You repeat your action step in your conclusion here. Just one sentence action step, not everything again that you just went over in step 5. Just one quick sentence, what exactly do you want the audience to do, and then you bring it to a close. Then don't forget to list your references. We need APA style, and you have to have at least 4 credible references. If you have any questions about that, you can let me know. So with this persuasive outline, in the module for the persuasive speech assignment, you'll find it's called Persuasive Speech Outline / Speech Plan. And in that persuasive assignment, you're going to find what's called a blank persuasive speech plan. That is this exact thing that I just went over, that you're going to fill out and that you're going to use to turn in for your persuasive speech assignment. All you have to do is go through exactly the steps we just went through here, is that in that blank persuasive speech plan, all the steps we just went through, you complete them, you turn that in. And if you have any questions, please let me know.